how scared are you that your plants are going to shut down due to raw or pack outages that may be going on right now?
Great question. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, that's what we deal with every day. It's not just raw and pack, right? It's also our maintenance and repair. It's also other items that are operating supplies. You know, when we talk about inflation, it is literally hitting every piece and part of our organization. And it's not just, we have great relationships with our suppliers, fantastic relationships, I will say. And our suppliers have done an excellent job of keeping us in stock. But, and I have not shut down one of my plants, maybe one shift here or there, but not a whole plant, which is amazing in this environment. But I will say this about inflation: it's hitting every piece and every part of the business. And we don't know where it's going to hit us next, right? Our lead times on a lot of our raw materials and packaging items and our equipment and our maintenance and repair and spare parts have gone from 3 weeks. Some items have gone up to 16 weeks. I'm not just talking double and triple, I'm talking quadruple. So lead times are extended. Then the other thing we got to talk about from a plant perspective is everybody has had labor issues. When you talk about inflation, everybody's had increased labor rates. Everyone, you name it. I don't think anybody has had an opportunity to reduce their labor rates. So when you increase your labor rates, I'm sorry, those are going to remain that way. I can't picture how you're going to take that away. So when you talk about inflation and righting itself, it's not going to right itself to where it was before, because you're not taking away that. We still need labor, and labor is still a #1 issue in most manufacturing type facilities in the United States. So that's going to be a main point of contention, is when this stuff starts to right itself. You're going to see that it's not going to come back and whiplash back to where it was prior to pandemic. It's just not, because everybody's still having a hard time getting labor, even with increased labor rates. So that's the interesting fact about what's happening with inflation. And I think that's a great study, by the way, Chris.
Well,
is the impact of labor and labor rates.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'll just make one comment, Darlene. It's
Sure.
interesting, and what we are seeing is, you know, as you talk about the wage rates, we are seeing, you know, instances in a number of companies that we work with where they're starting to move manufacturing out of the United States into areas like Mexico, not far away, but near shore, because of the more, you know, it's all about labor. It's about the stability of the labor force, as well as the cost of that labor force. So
I will say,
we're also seeing automation as well.
I was just going to say the second piece is automation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, companies like ours and others in the producing world of manufacturing in the United States have looked at accelerating that automation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Finding very, very opportunistic times and getting a lot of engineers working, being very creative on how they can automate as much as possible to reduce that labor. So you see that happening as well. Another interesting part of that as well is, you know, we want to automate, but can't get the equipment for 26 weeks, right? So we figure out the solution on how to reduce the labor, but then we can't get the equipment that be able to do it. So again, perfect storm. So for us, it's every single thing we're looking at, everything from a procurement perspective. We're pulling every lever out of every consultant's handbook that you've ever met, on what we can do with our suppliers to reduce costs. I will also tell you that cost avoidance, which used to be like a who cares, has become a very significant part of our business. And our finance brethren have really started tracking that a lot more than they ever have in my entire career, because it is important. And they're actually seeing how important it is. The other piece of inflation that I think in most companies, and I will say specifically for mine and specifically for me as a procurement professional for the last 30 years, my relationship with sales and finance has grown exponentially because of the pricing actions they're having to do, and the deep dive into commodities and the deep dive into packaging and the deep dive into all areas of procurement, which they never gave a hoo-ha about, right? Before this time, is grown quadruple X. I can call our SVP of sales right now and he will answer my phone. right? With avian flu, with trucking issues, with, you name it, coming on board for us in procurement. He wants to know everything that's happening. We've put in place supply continuity and inflationary conversations that happen weekly because things happen every single day, right? So those are some of the big points that we've done to make sure that the executives at my company are fully aware of everything that's happening, because literally it changes on a daily basis of what we can and can't get and why we can't get it and get it, right? Nobody could predict avian flu. Nobody could predict the Ukraine situation with Russia. We are a big buyer of wheat to turn into flour, and that is going to have and is having a huge impact, even though we have great suppliers that are very close, but the pricing and the hedging and all that fun stuff has gone bonkers, right?
Wow.